You are not undisciplined. You are negotiating. Watch yourself tomorrow morning, honestly, for about 4 seconds. The alarm goes and there is a conversation. Not a decision, a conversation. How tired am I? Is it raining? Did I sleep badly enough to be excused? What if I move it to this evening? And by the time that conversation is over, whichever way it goes, you have already lost something because you have taught yourself one more time that the thing is up for discussion. Now, picture the other posture. Not a stronger person, not a person who wants it more, a person for whom that conversation simply does not open. The alarm goes and they are upright, and there is no internal committee because the matter was settled a long time ago and they have not thought to reopen it. The distance between you and that person is not willpower, and being told otherwise is why you keep failing at this. Willpower is what you spend once the argument is already happening. It is emergency money, and nobody builds a life on emergency money. So let us close the argument. 6 rules, and by the end, you will understand why the people who look terrifyingly disciplined do not actually find it hard, and why the ones grinding their teeth are the ones who quit. Rule 1, stop trying to like it. Let us kill the bad advice first, because it is in the title of this video, and it is half wrong. You cannot force yourself to enjoy a thing by doing it with a grim face. Appetite is not produced by pressure. Sit there tonight repeating that you love cold showers, and some part of you will quietly file that under lies I have been told. But here is the half that is true, and it is why the phrase survives it all. You can change what a hard thing means, and meaning is where the liking comes from. Nobody enjoys the sensation of running at 6 in the morning in November. What people enjoy is being someone who did. The physical experience never becomes pleasant. The identity attached to it does. So the instruction is not learn to love the discomfort. It is attach the discomfort to something you already love and then get out of the way while the two of them fuse. The old teachers all understood this. None of them taught struggle for its own sake. Hill spent 20 years around men who worked absurd hours, and he did not find grim men. He found men who had made the work mean something so specific that stopping would have felt worse than continuing. That is the whole trick. You are not trying to like the hard thing. You are trying to make the hard thing carry something you want, until refusing it becomes the uncomfortable option. Rule 2, discipline the feeling, not the act. Here is where almost everyone fights the wrong end of the chain. You have a thought. The thought produces a feeling. The feeling moves the body. The body produces the result. That is the sequence, in that order, and it does not run backwards. Bob Proctor used to draw that chain on a board for exactly this reason. Nobody has ever seen a mind, so people needed a picture of one. Thought at the top, in the part that reasons and can reject an idea. Feeling underneath, in the part that cannot reject anything and simply accepts what it is handed. Then the body, which is only ever the instrument. Then the result. And what do you do when you want to be disciplined? You go to war at the last link. You try to force the body while leaving the thought and the feeling exactly as they were. So you are dragging a body that is being told from the inside that this is unpleasant and unnecessary and could be done later. Of course, that costs everything you have. You are pulling against yourself with both hands. Hill was blunt about where your authority actually sits. You do not have jurisdiction over outcomes. You do not have jurisdiction over other people. You have jurisdiction over exactly one thing, which is what you allow to occupy your own mind, and everything else in your life is downstream of that one power. So the discipline happens earlier than you think. It happens at the thought, before there is a feeling to fight. Practically, that looks like this. The night before, you decide once. Not the morning of, when the body has an opinion. The night before, calmly, with no adrenaline involved, you settle it and you write it down if you have to. Then, in the morning, you are not deciding at all. You are executing a decision made by someone in a better mood, who had your interests at heart and who is no longer available for negotiation. Rule 3, give the hard thing a destination. A hard thing with nowhere to go is just suffering, and human beings will not do pointless suffering for long. They are not built for it, and they should not be. Bob Proctor had a line about this that took me years to properly hear. "We work on the goal," he said, "and the goal works on us." Read that second half again, because that is the mechanism. You think you are building the business or the body or the skill. You are. But the whole time, the thing you are reaching for is quietly reaching back and reorganizing the person doing the reaching. Which means the hard thing is not the price of the goal. It is the delivery mechanism for the person you are trying to become. And that tells you why so much modern discipline advice produces nothing. There is a whole economy of it now. The 4 a.m. timestamp, the ice bath, filmed. The joyless montage of a man doing difficult things at a camera. Look closely, and you will notice what is missing. Nobody ever says what any of it is for. That is not discipline, it is decoration, and it burns out fast. Because a difficult act with no destination has nothing feeding it except how it looks, and how it looks stops paying within about 5 weeks. So before you demand anything of yourself, answer the boring question. What is this for, specifically? Not to be better, not to level up. What will be different, and for whom and by when? Answer that properly, and half the forcing disappears on its own, because you are no longer pushing a rock. You are going somewhere, and the rock is on the way. And while we are here, if this is landing, subscribe. This channel is one law taken apart from a different angle every time, and this particular angle is the one people ask me about most. Rule 4, win the 15 seconds before. Every failure of discipline you have ever had happened in a window of about 15 seconds, and it did not happen where you think. It did not happen at the gym door. It happened on the sofa, in the sentence you allowed yourself to finish. I have had a long week. It is not going to make a difference today. I will start properly on Monday. Florence Scovel Shinn worked with people in New York in the 1920s and 30s, and she was ferocious about exactly this. She did not treat that inner sentence as harmless commentary. She treated it as the thing that had already decided the outcome, and she taught people to refuse it out loud, immediately, before it finished forming. She gave them a form of words for it. I deny resentment, meaning, I am not entertaining this. I am not going to sit with it, examine it, and let it argue its case. That word deny is doing something precise. She is not saying pretend you are not tired. She is saying you do not owe the excuse a hearing. Because you cannot stop the thought arriving. Nobody can. What you can do, and this is the entire skill, is refuse to complete the sentence. So build one line and use the same one every time. I do not negotiate with this. Say it out loud if you are alone, which is silly and works anyway, and then move your body within 5 seconds, because a body already in motion cannot be talked out of anything. 15 seconds. That is the whole battlefield. Nobody ever lost their discipline in the middle of the workout. Rule 5. Make it small, boring, and unwatched. There is a man in Kenya who has held the marathon world record and won Olympic gold, and for years, the way he has lived has embarrassed everybody who talks about discipline for a living. He trains at a camp in Kaptagat, up in the highlands, basic dormitory, a bed, and not much else. And on the rota, alongside the other athletes, he takes his turn with the chores, sweeping, cleaning, the toilets included. Nobody is exempt, and he does not ask to be. Eliud Kipchoge has a line he returns to constantly. Only the disciplined ones are free in life. If you are not disciplined, he says, you are a slave to your moods. You are a slave to your passions. Look at what that actually describes, because it is the opposite of what discipline is usually sold as. It is not intensity. There is no montage. It is a man doing ordinary, small, repeatable things at the same hour, on a rota, with nobody watching for years. That is the shape of it. Small enough that a bad day cannot stop it. Boring enough that it needs no motivation. Unwatched, so it is not being paid in attention. And here's the test I would give you for anything you are trying to build. If it would collapse the moment nobody knew about it, it was never discipline. It was performance, and performance requires an audience, and audiences leave. Cut whatever you are attempting in half. Then in half again. Make it so small that skipping it would be faintly ridiculous. Then do that version for 90 days without telling anybody and see what has happened to you. Rule 6. Do it on the days with no evidence. This is the last rule, and it is the only one that actually separates people. In 1912, Napoleon Hill's son Blair was born without ears, not damaged hearing, no openings at all. The doctors told him plainly what would follow. The boy would never hear, would never speak, and would live as a deaf mute. Hill refused the verdict, not loudly. He simply declined to accept it as the final word, and then he did something almost nobody has the stomach for. Every night, for years, he sat with that boy and told him stories built for one purpose, which was to plant in him the absolute expectation that he would hear, night after night, with no improvement, with no sign, with every professional opinion available saying he was wasting his life on a fantasy. Think about the middle of that, not the beginning, when a man is fired up and determined. The middle, year 3, year 4. A father sitting in the dark saying the same things to a boy who has given him nothing back because there was nothing to give back. Blair grew up able to hear well enough to go through school, to go through college, and eventually, with a hearing device, to hear normally enough to build a working life of his own. Hill wrote about it as the clearest proof he ever had of the thing he had spent his life teaching. I do not tell you that to promise you a miracle. I tell you because of the middle. Because you will get a stretch, and it will come sooner than you would like, where you are doing everything correctly, and there is nothing to show for it. No visible change, nobody noticing. The scale saying the same number, the account saying the same number, the work producing nothing you can point at. That stretch is not a sign you chose wrong. It is the standard shape of anything real. And what you do in it decides everything. Because the people who look dangerously disciplined from the outside are simply the people who kept going through their version of it, and there is no other difference between them and you. So here is where I will leave you. Do not wait to feel like it. Feeling like it is the reward for having done it, not the requirement for starting. And the order of those two has been sold to you backwards your entire life. Decide the night before. Refuse the sentence. Keep it small enough to be unimpressive and quiet enough that nobody claps. Point it at something you actually want. And then be the kind of person who keeps going on the days the world gives you absolutely nothing back. That last part is the whole thing. Everybody can do the work on the day the work is working.